the 24th, and you are tuned into Game Over with Vashti and Sharona. I am Vashti Hurt, and I am joined, as always, with my co-host, Sharona. And it is Friday, but it feels like a Monday to me because I've been struggling all morning. How are you today, Sharona?
All I do is win, 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 no matter what. Got money on my mind.
I'm tired, but I'm great. What a game last night in Nashville. Game 5 between Chicago and the Nashville Preds. Going to Game 6, it was a must-win game for the Nashville Predators, and they pulled it out. They came through. It was so exciting. You guys, I'm extremely tired this morning, but I'm just happy to be here.
You confused me with the music. I was like, what is going on? Is my phone messing up? I was like, oh.
Sorry.
And so I said, let me just be quiet and see if something else is going to happen. You threw me with that one.
Sorry.
It was crazy because I was out at an event and there were TVs in there and people were just as interested in hockey as they were the Cavaliers and the Celtics game.
Yeah?
And I thought that was very interesting, yeah. I wanted to ask you before we have a good show. We're gonna do Game On or Game Over. We're also gonna talk some Greg Hardy. Sharona, listen, guys. Sharona and I don't go through this whole production process. So when we talk about things, we don't know what our opinions are gonna be. That's probably why.
Yeah.
That's probably why you get some very hot takes from us. But we're going to talk Greg Hardy in the second half hour. And then we're also going to talk to Melissa Jacobs of the Football Girl to talk some NFL. But I did want to ask you, what happened with the play? Everyone on Twitter was talking about it. The player had to take his shirt off or his clothes off because a puck got lost?
Oh, that wasn't last night. That was 2 games ago. Pekka Rinne literally almost had to strip on the ice. It was great. The puck got lodged somewhere in goalies, hockey goalies wear pads, and they're pretty geeked out because a puck coming at you, 100 miles an hour, hitting you on your bare skin could leave a mark. And and so they've got the pads and the hand pads and all that, and it got lodged in his pads and his uniform, and he couldn't find it, and so that was a great moment in hockey history.
Yeah, I saw a whole bunch of people tweeting about it. Sharona was ready for the strip show, as you guys know.
I was ready for the strip down. Do it for the time,
Sharona was ready. All right, guys. We want you all to call in. We are going to open the phone lines in the second half hour when we do talk about Greg Hardy because we want your takes. Like I said, I don't know what Sharona is going to say. But we are going to talk to Greg Hardy's suspension. Was it fair? What messages the NFL is sending? Sharona and I will give our take on it, but we want you to call in. The call-in number is 917-889-3879. Again, that's 917-889-3879, and we'll give that again closer to the time. All right, let's go ahead and get started with Game On or Game Over. Rajon Rondo's tenure with the Mavs all but officially ended Wednesday when the team announced that he'd be out indefinitely with a previously undisclosed and untreated back injury, a day after he played fewer than 10 minutes in a Game 2 loss to the Houston Rockets. Game On or Game Over that Rondo's failings in Dallas prove that he's overrated?
I'm going to say Game Over. I think that, listen, everybody's time comes, and I don't think that Rondo was a great fit for what the Mavericks do. His play definitely declined. I think that he's a very smart player. I think that he's been a great player. There are always going to be people who think guys are overrated. Personally, I do not think that he is. I think it's a very sad ending to his tenure, but I don't. Yeah, I'm going to say game over. I don't think that he's overrated.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. I'm going to say game over. I like Rajon Rondo. I like the way he plays. I liked his grittiness and his passion. This whole experiment with the Mavs was doomed from the start. There was talk about like him and the coach. He and the coach didn't really get along well.
Yeah.
I don't know whether, he meshed well with his teammates. If you saw after the game when Rondo was benched, and he didn't have a good game, when he was benched in game 2, like, he left without speaking to the media. I don't necessarily have a problem with that. The problem that I have is Rondo had a bad attitude, and I didn't like that. I didn't like I understand that certain situations aren't what you'd like them to be, and obviously he does not like the coach, and he I don't understand what that dynamic is completely, but I didn't like his attitude, and I felt that he wasn't really playing hard. He wasn't playing, and this is a playoff, and you are supposed to step your game up, and he didn't do so. Matter of fact, he just was out there like he didn't really care what happened, and to me that's disrespecting the game, and that's what pissed me off about Rondo and what he displayed a couple of nights ago. Now, is he a good player? He's a great player? Yes. I think that, he proved that in Boston. This situation in Dallas wasn't ideal. Hopefully he'll get in another situation where he'll be able to showcase his talents again, but you can't disrespect the game by not going out there and giving 100%, and that's what I think he did. So that's my beef with Rondo right now. But game over that it proves that he's overrated. I saw a lot of people saying that, and I'm like, well, where does this whole overrated narrative come from? I don't. People thrive in different situations, even in a regular work environment. You might thrive under certain situations. So I think people are just ready to throw him under the bus. I don't know. Tough week for Dallas fans, though. Sharona.
Yeah.
Tough week.
All right. We're going to be talking a little bit about Greg Hardy here in a minute. Yeah, I mean, but I think they kind of knew what they were getting going in both situations.
That's a good point. I didn't think about that, but we'll talk more. We're gonna dedicate a whole segment to Greg Hardy, so we're gonna talk about him shortly. In a segment from Real Sports released online, I think a couple days ago, comedian Chris Rock explained why the black community had given up on baseball. Here's kind of an excerpt. Rock said that the game is stuck in the past. From the old white announcers to the organ music, every club is building a stadium that's supposed to remind people of the good old days. The good old days of Ruth DiMaggio and Emmett Till, a 14-year-old black boy murdered in Mississippi for allegedly flirting with a married white woman. Mm-hmm. Game on or game over, that baseball should be terrified. Rock said this. Game on or game over to Rock's opinion that baseball should be terrified that blacks don't watch it.
I think that definitely Major League Baseball should be cognizant of a large portion of the population that has started to tune out to its product. Terrified, I don't know that I would go that far. It was a provocative little segment. It was a great segment. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, definitely, I'll tweet it out. Excuse me, after the show is over. Chris Rock, comedian. He's a Major League Baseball fan, a black man, obviously, and he does have that perspective. I definitely think that, and we've talked about this before on the show, Vashti. Major League Baseball has an appeal problem to the younger generation in general, and what Chris Rock was saying, kind of mirrored that, and it they're making efforts to try to quote unquote modernize the game, make it a little bit faster, and all of that. So yeah, I mean they should be concerned, but I don't know that I would go as far as terrified.
I'm going to say game on. I think that they should be terrified. I think that baseball has the same issue that NASCAR has. And not on the same, of course, baseball makes more money than NASCAR, but when you appeal to one segment of the population, then from a business standpoint, and I'm not saying that baseball only appeals to whites. Chris Rock said a couple of things. He even pointed out that there's a historically black college, I think it's Stillman in Alabama, and the majority of the players I think he said one black player on a baseball team at a historically black college. That is a problem.
It's ridiculous.
That is a problem. That's a problem for the sport. And quite honestly, this is the hip hop age right now. Hip hop sets the trend, and you see these guys, rappers and football players, and and basketball players, and there's an appeal to it. It's cool. It's cool to watch football. It's cool to watch basketball. People get hype about these sports, and with that, you see these television deals. They're even globally, these leagues are trying to expand more. And they're able to do that because watching the sport is cool. And it's not just, cool for those fans, but even casual fans. If you like music and you hear Drake, you might not like basketball, but you like Drake. And you hear Drake talking about basketball things. That's exposure. That's your sport getting exposure. Baseball doesn't have that. Baseball is not cool to the hip-hop generation. And they should be terrified because what happens is, who's to say 50 years from now that the sport might not have issues and might not start dying out? So you have to appeal to everyone, and especially the younger fans, because those are going to be the people that are going to be able to sustain your product in the future. And I don't really know any young kids that watch baseball like that. I don't know.
My nephew played the game. He watches the game. He loves the game of baseball. There are reasons why he was good at it. We should do it. Devote a show to youth coaching. There's a lot of good
that's a good
subject matter.
That would be a good one.
Yeah, but part of there's so many levels to the issues that Major League Baseball is facing. The media that covers Major League Baseball is very much committed to the old guard, the old way of doing things. And you touched on it too. You don't see hip hop stars and rappers and people who are hot in the media going to Major League Baseball games or even watching baseball, or so, and they don't cultivate that either. So
right.
Baseball has been stuck in the past for a long time, and you can't ignore the impact that the quote unquote steroid era had on the game. It was a black mark on the game, and there are topics of discussion there too on how the media covered it and what have you. So there are a lot of layers to why Major League Baseball is where it is today.
I went to another. You guys know I went to my first. I went to a Knights game previously, but I went to another one this past Saturday. 2 for me. Knights is the Knights are our minor league team here in Charlotte, and I think they're an affiliate of the White Sox. And this game that I went to on Saturday, it was social hour. Like, there weren't all this. It was nearly sold out, which is good for the team. But people weren't in the stands. They were walking around in the concessions and drinking, and nobody was even really paying attention to the game. And that's a problem. That's a real problem. Mm-hmm. And baseball has to figure out a way to fix it, just like NASCAR has to fix it. These major league sports need to be concerned, and they need to appeal to everyone. and you might want to stay old school and pay homage to what was years ago, but we're not in that day and age. Social media has changed things. Everything has changed, and you have to appeal. You have to be trendy. You have to be cool these days, and baseball isn't cool right now, to the masses, and that's a problem. And they can start being cool by appealing to a more diverse audience. All right, OKC, Oklahoma City, fired head coach Scott Brooks after 7 seasons. Here's a quote from the GM regarding it. He said, "This decision is not a reflection of the past season, but rather an assessment of what we feel is necessary at this point in time in order to continually involve progress and sustain. Game on or game over that OKC made the right decision in firing Brooks."
We're probably going to disagree on this. I say game over. I do not think that it was the right decision. I think that he is a good coach. You saw players say that. You've seen other coaches say that. But there's something to be said for change. And it looks like they've got Billy Donovan on their radar. The Oklahoma City Thunder didn't make the playoffs this year. Kevin Durant, with his injury, was certainly part of that. But it's really hard. Although I don't agree that he was, part of the problem. Sometimes things can stagnate, and a change in direction can create a spark.
We actually agree, Sharona. I'm going to say game over. I thought the timing of this firing was real suspect. Although they say it's not. Yeah, although they say it wasn't because of this past season. If it wasn't because of this past season, then why fire him after it? The Thunder went through a lot of ups and downs, and they were injury related, and that's something that you can't help as a coach. When your best player is out the majority of the year, and then Westbrook had injuries at the beginning of the season, the fact that OKC was even there in the end to fight for a playoff spot, I think was impressive, given everything that they've had to go through this season. I don't like the timing of this firing. I think that what Brooks has been able to do at the Thunder. I mean, he has talent. I mean, you can't knock that. I mean, when you have Kevin Durant, you have Westbrook, and you have that squad that they have there, it makes it easier to coach, but you still have to coach. And I think that he's done a good job. Granted, he hasn't won an NBA championship, but I don't even think Phil Jackson, one of the greatest, would have been able to take that team to the championship, playing against in that Western Conference and against the other teams in the NBA. I just don't like the firing. Kevin Durant went online and he posted a really heartfelt message about it. I wonder whether they got his input into these things. I always wondered.
Yeah, that was interesting too. They came out and said that they did not consult the players.
That's crazy.
I know it is, and I'm going to paraphrase the quote probably poorly, but what they said was that they didn't want to put the players in an unfair situation of criticizing the coach, so they didn't consult them, that has layers too. But yeah, that was.
Listen, Kevin Durant is going to be a free agent coming up. Westbrook is going to be a free agent. When you have players of that caliber and you want to keep them around, you show their importance by getting their input. How do you not get Kevin Durant's input when you're making a decision like firing the coach? That could really backfire. And so what if I would be uncomfortable criticizing the coach? Oh, well, I mean, but that's you want the input of your players. I don't understand that.
Especially your star players.
Right, exactly. So I don't like the timing. I don't like the way it was handled.
Do you think that was
never
kind
know.
of a slap in the face? Vashti, do you think that was kind of a slap in the face to Kevin Durant and that they didn't consult them? I mean, they're star players, and they deserve to have that consultation, don't you think? You know, Kobe and LeBron and all these other players get that.
They absolutely do. I guarantee you the Cavs aren't making any kind of move without LeBron James knowing what's going on.
That's right.
The Lakers weren't doing anything without getting Kobe's consent. You know, and I believe that KD is that caliber of a player where he deserves that type of respect also. Yes, it's a complete slap in the face, and I'd be pissed if I was KD or Westbrook. I'd be like, okay, you're just going through a coaching change is a lot because you might who knows what the philosophy is. I don't like this Billy Donovan talk either. You know, when you have guys who are experienced and who have won, you know, it's going to be hard for a Billy Donovan, and he's a good coach. I mean, he's done great in Florida, but you know, he's never been a head coach in the NBA. So you take a guy from college where he's done well and put him in the NBA. To me, when you're talking about stars and professional athletes, there's a respect factor, and you have to have that respect. And I don't know if these guys are going to come out and respect Donovan out of the gate. I don't think that they respect him. I think that they have grown. Kevin Durant has grown with Brooks. Westbrook has grown with Brooks. So they didn't have any choice but to respect them because when he came, they've grown together in the league. But then you have this new kid on the block. He will come in and coach them, and they're going to be looking at him sideways. Plus, they might not want Brooks to be gone anyway. You have to consult your players when you're making these type of decisions.
Yeah.
All right. The Browns are a complete mess. But when asked about the potential, there have been talks about the Browns trading up in round 1 of next week's NFL draft for quarterback Marcus Mariota. When asked about it, General Manager Ray Farmer said, quote, "Sure, why not? Game on or game over that this trade is a real possibility."
I'm going to say game on to it being a real possibility, but game over to it being a smart possibility. You know, the Browns are going to brown, right? I mean, hey, Ray Farmer, I hope that you got your act together now. I'm not going to be sending text messages on the sidelines, you know, because you're going to miss, the first 4 games of the season? Friendly little dig there. Listen, Johnny Manziel, drafted in the first round last year of the 2014 NFL Draft. The Browns do have 2 first-round draft selections. Are they going to turn around and use first-round draft picks on I don't see this happening unless they are able to finagle a trade for Johnny Manziel. Having 2 young quarterbacks, first-round draft, that's just a recipe for failure, in my opinion. But I'm going to say this, too. Listen, he's not going to reveal his hand, and he shouldn't. And he said it, and he said the right thing. He shouldn't rule this out. You know, they're not going to reveal their draft plans, but legitimately, are they going to do this? I do not think that it would be a smart thing for them to do. Like I said, unless they're going to somehow unload Johnny Manziel, they need to take those first-round draft selections and focus on surrounding him with better talent. Josh, you know, they're going to be without Josh Gordon for a while. Who knows how long? Jordan Cameron's gone. They need some offensive skill players. They could definitely stand to have some more talent on their defense. In my opinion, you don't play Russian roulette with your first round draft picks like that.
If I were a Browns fan, I think I'd have to go to the other team in Ohio. I'd have to change to the Bengals, and that might not even be much better. The drama and everything surrounding the Browns, I don't understand it. Why would you even, as a general manager, why would you answer the question like this? Why would you even say sure, why not? Then that only breeds more speculation. Who knows what's going on with Johnny Manziel? So, if Johnny Manziel is your quarterback, if you're sticking with him, then these comments are, of course, he's going to see him. How is that going to make him feel? And he's supposed to be your guy. Is that killing his confidence? Then even if it is a real possibility, why would you do that? Why would you do that? To me, there are too many question marks. I saw a stat on Twitter, and it was crazy to me. I think it was 27 quarterbacks have been selected in the first round over the past 10 years. Only 28 playoff wins are between all 27 of those quarterbacks, and Flacco has 10 of them.
Oh yeah,
you're playing with quarterbacks, period, or players anyway. You never know what's going to work out. You just drafted Johnny Manziel last year. You've been saying that he's your guy. Johnny, I don't know what's going on with Johnny Manziel. If he's going to be your guy, then stick with him. But trading your pick for Mariota, who I think, I don't know, he's another question mark. I don't get it. I don't understand what the Browns are doing. It's crazy to me, and it's confusing. And if I were a Browns fan, I'd be super frustrated with them. All right, Drake the rapper, we just talked about him, and he's also the Raptors global ambassador, whatever that is. That's I don't understand these titles that they give people just to associate them with the team. But Drake caught flack from fans and even a politician for shaking hands with Paul Pierce after Pierce had said Toronto didn't have the quote-unquote it factor to succeed in the playoffs. Game on or game over to the uproar caused by Drake fraternizing with the enemy.
I missed a large part of this. I did see Drake was supposed to hold a press conference, and he did not. And I'm aware of that whole frenemy situation between Drake and Paul Pierce. I like to think that this is all just fun and Twitter games and all of that. So I'm going to say game on. Let Drake be Drake. Listen, Drake is the new Kenny Chesney. Kenny Chesney has a jersey with every major sports franchise in his closet. And you know what, Snoop Dogg, we see you too. You out there, you're a sports polygamist as well.
Snoop often gets a pass, but we're not giving him a pass. He jumps on those California teams bandwagon so quick. He'll be a Lakers fan, then he was all about Golden State, and it's just, we see. I'm going to say game on. Listen, who cares? And the thing is, if you're a politician, why are you even getting involved in this? Do you not have more important things? Are you trying to be cool? I guess maybe that's why. But so what that he shook Paul Pierce's hand? So what that Paul Pierce said that Toronto didn't have the it factor to succeed in the playoffs? Who cares about why is this huge topic amongst Raptors fans and politicians in Canada that he shook a man's hand? Oh, now Drake is going for the Wizards. That is absolutely crazy. People need to stop with this over the board fandom. That's absolutely nuts to me. I don't like the Patriots, but just because if I meet Tom Brady and I shake his hand, now I'm a Patriots fan, that's crazy. So I'm gonna say game on. Let him shake hands, talk, do whatever he wants to do. It's really not that serious, guys. I mean, it's not like Drake is playing. It's not like Drake is playing for Toronto. All right, guys, that's it for Game On or Game Over. We're gonna go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk some Greg Hardy. Our phone lines will be open, so make sure you give us a call. The telephone number is 917-889-3879, 917-889-3879. Give us your take on the Greg Hardy suspension. Was it fair? What message is the NFL sending with the 10-game suspension? All right, stay tuned. We're going to go to break. When we come back, we're going to talk some Greg Hardy. You're listening to Game Over with Vashti and Sharona.
morning and welcome back. You're tuned in and listening to Game Over with Vashti and Sharona. I'm Sharona. You guys, I apologize for my voice this morning. I might have yelled a little bit last night. It's such a great game. I'm still riding that high from last night, and I didn't get a lot of sleep. So I've got the no sleep and I'm mainlining coffee this morning. So, but thanks for tuning in. We're going to talk a little bit about Greg Hardy now. Greg Hardy, defensive lineman who used to play for the Carolina Panthers, did not get a contract extension from them, was let go in the off season, and now is a Dallas Cowboys defensive lineman. They signed him to a very incentive laden contract. It does appear, at least right now, that he might miss 10 games. There will be appeal of that. We already know that the NFLPA has filed or is going to file an appeal on that situation. The NFL in their press release, I'm pulling that up right now, by the way, so bear with me, but the NFL in their press release said that they conducted a 2-month, a lengthy investigation, and there were a lot of interesting things in that press release. They interviewed a lot of witnesses. They looked at the official court file. They had 2 meetings, I believe. Bear with me, I'm still pulling that up. 2 meetings, I believe, multiple meetings, we can say, with Greg Hardy and his attorney. Yeah, Greg Hardy provided some information. The league found that he didn't provide complete and accurate information. So, they issued this 10-game suspension. Again, it is going to be appealed. And I know Vashti has a lot of thoughts on this, so I'm going to shut up now and let her weigh in.
Listen, I'm positive Sharona and I won't agree on this. But first of all, when I heard that Hardy was being suspended 10 games, my initial reaction was like, dang, like I didn't expect that. I didn't expect 10 games. I expected some type of penalty, but I definitely didn't expect 10 games. Before I say what I say, let me preface this. I am not an advocate for domestic violence at all. Okay, what Greg Hardy did was wrong. Obviously, I've been trying to get some photos of whatever, but the NFL, I think they found that he pushed her against a wall, pushed her on the futon, put his hands around her neck enough to cause bruising. They obviously had pictures. NFL had access to information that Vashti doesn't have access to. But
right.
My issue with this suspension is the NFL seems to be making up stuff as it goes along. You have everything hit the fan when the Ray Rice video was released. We all know what happened last year. Then the NFL all of a sudden became concerned about domestic violence. Okay, now the NFL cares. Okay, fine. Greg Hardy gets in this issue. He's on the exempt list. He played 1 game last season, but he still got paid. So was he penalized? Yes, but he still was paid. So that's a problem, right? Then after all of this happens, they implement this code of conduct where, automatic 6-game suspension for your first occurrence. Well, this was Greg Hardy's first occurrence. I don't think I have a problem with the NFL implementing policy and then not following that same policy that they implemented. I don't understand that. I would have been cool with a 6-game suspension. All right, fine. His pockets didn't hurt. All right. Obviously something went down. The NFL wants to send a message. All right, Greg Hardy, you're suspended for 6 games based on our policy. But you just can't go and implement a policy and then now say, we have this policy, but we're going to suspend Greg Hardy for 10 games. I don't understand that. I don't think that that's fair. I don't understand the NFL, are they sending a message? They're trying to send a message. The NFLPA said they actually might sue the league for what's going on. You know, the suspensions have been overturned twice by judges. And then I questioned, okay, what is the NFL? Then I had this thought: is the NFL, did they make the suspension 10 games, knowing that it's going to be appealed and knowing that it'll probably go down to 6? But they can say, oh well, we tried to be strict with Greg Hardy by issuing a 10-game suspension. I don't understand what Roger Goodell is doing. I don't understand what the league is doing. I don't think 10 games is fair. I would have been cool with 6.
Well, I think that you have to separate this out into kind of three separate events. The first one, it was always strange to me, the Adrian Peterson and the Greg Hardy situation, where both guys went on the exempt list and received their salaries but did not play. What transpired, and it from what we understand and know about that, obviously we're not privy to what conversations took place between all the parties that allowed that to take place. What led to those decisions to put both of those two players on the exempt list and to allow them to receive their salaries, we don't know. We don't have enough information. I found that to be very, very, very strange. But again, that's separate, and it looks like it was voluntary. I believe it was Adrian Peterson who came out and said that there were promises that were made that they didn't keep. What the lawsuit that allowed Adrian Peterson and particularly Ray Rice. For Ray Rice, it was a situation where he had already been penalized, and then the league tacked on an additional penalty. You knew that was going to get overturned. It's not really the same as double jeopardy, because we're not talking about a court of law, although it really does mirror that kind of a situation. It's sort of the same situation in a little bit with Adrian Peterson. Again, the judge in both of those cases said if there hadn't been, especially with the Ray Rice, if there hadn't been the first, there's a lot of discretion. What these judges have to do is look at the CBA, the collective bargaining agreement, and make sure that the league operates within the confines of the collective bargaining agreement. And I haven't had a chance to look and see what the NFLPA is talking about when, as Vashti mentioned, they said that they're going to, that possibly could sue. And this is the second thing that we've got to understand and recognize. The NFLPA did not sign off on this so-called new domestic violence policy that says that for a first-time offender, it contemplates a 6-game suspension. For repeat offenders, indefinite suspension and possibly never playing in the league again. Probably a better option for those players like Ray Rice, who may not have much left in the tank. But I digress just briefly. So I think that, and the NFLPA has said in the past that, and I agree with the NFLPA on this, by the way. I'm not, you guys know that I'm a victims' right advocate. I would include athletes who collectively bargain with their professional sports franchises and come to an agreement, and when there might be some shenanigans with that bargaining process. This was not collectively bargained. This new policy was not collectively bargained, and in my mind, that's a real problem. Having said that, there's still discretion in the old policy for the league to act and operate here, which leads me to the third thing. We heard a lot of numbers thrown out when people were postulating and speculating on what could possibly happen with Greg Hardy. At that particular time, all we knew was that Greg Hardy had allegedly, done some bad things to Nicole Holder that led to these charges, that led to a judge taking a look at the situation and finding him liable, finding him guilty on some of the charges against him. He did appeal, and as in with the league's investigation, and I meant to mention that when I gave my little brief summary. It's in my article. I just tweeted out my article about this. Nicole Holder. There was the attorneys for Greg Hardy refused to acknowledge or confirm that there was a settlement, but when the case was dismissed, the prosecutor said that there was credible evidence that there had been a settlement reached. She was not able to be found. She did not speak with the National Football League. She made herself unavailable. This is not uncommon with victims of domestic violence. So have to say that too. But at that time, we just knew that there were some possibly bad things that had gone down between the two of them. What we now know is that the league sat down with Greg Hardy on more than one occasion, and the league found that, I'm not going to say that he lied because they never came out and said it, but this is what they said. Let me find it. The NFL's investigation also concluded that Hardy failed to provide complete and accurate information to NFL investigators and members of the NFL staff. Now, here's the thing, you've got to treat these as two separate incidents. If you're people have learned this to their detriment. Hi, Bruce Pearl, I see you. Lying to investigators is treated as a separate thing. It's treated as a separate event. If you're being called to sit down and talk about something that has transpired, you need to be upfront and accurate and complete with your response. If you don't do that, you're going to get hit with an additional punishment. It happens all the time, and it happened in this case. So the way I look at this is, Greg Hardy probably got those 6 games. The NFL found there were 4 separate acts of violence against Nicole Holder. Vashti already mentioned those. The thing that probably took it to the 6 games was him choking her, was him putting his hands around her neck. She had bruising around her neck. That is an act that is incredibly, incredibly violent. You can kill someone by that. And, he's a big guy. He's a strong guy. She's not on his level in terms of size or weight or physicality. And domestic violence advocates, people who operate and work in this field, always view that as an incident that is above the top and extremely concerning. And so that portion of it, in my opinion, is probably what took it to the 6 games. And then I think that they threw 4 games on top of that because I don't want to say, I'm going to use their words. Because, again, the NFL's investigation concluded that Hardy failed to provide complete and accurate information to NFL investigators and members of the NFL staff. If he had If he hadn't done that last, I think that we would be sitting here with 6 games. In my opinion.
So you think that the suspension is fair, and I didn't hear that. So they're saying that they tacked on 4 games because he lied?
I didn't say that they said that. I said, in my opinion, that's where it came from. And everybody, a lot of people have, I'm not the only one to draw this conclusion. Jane McManus, I'm so sorry, Jane. Gosh, my brain is operating this morning. I could not remember your last name. She writes for ESPNW. I retweeted an article that she did. She discussed this too. That the additional punishment is because of the failure to cooperate completely and fully with the investigation, and that's they didn't come out and I think in my opinion, I think that's part of it. And I also think too, and I think that you can't discount this either. I think that we're knee deep in the draft process. We're a week away from the second round of the 2015 NFL draft. It's next week in Chicago, and you're seeing a lot of teams. You're seeing a lot of activity. I think that there's some concern here, some legitimate concern here by Roger Goodell and by the National Football League that teams aren't listening. Because, and I don't want to even paraphrase this because I'm afraid I'll do it. I won't do it right. But the Cardinals GM came out and had some rather interesting comments regarding how teams look at guys with character issues or so-called off-the-field issues. And I think that the league, I'm sorry, you guys, hold on just a second. I think that the league saw these statements and saw all of these things going on and was like, you know what? We're going to show these teams that we mean business. And let's not forget, Jerry Jones, oh my God, Jerry Jones came out and said, and I still can't believe he said this, that Greg Hardy paid a terrible price. And, well, maybe those words were prophetic.
Well, but do you think the suspension is fair, Sharona?
I think, I had such low expectations here. I mean, I had low expectations. I had an opportunity to talk to Patrick Kahn, who covers the Dallas Cowboys for what used to be Draft Cowboys. Their cover is Valley Ranch Insiders now, I believe the website is called. Dallas Cowboys fan, and he's very tuned in to the fan base and to the coverage there. He thought that it was going to be 3. We had seen 6 to 8. I didn't want to get any sort of number in my mind because I didn't want. You guys know I've talked about it. I'm unfortunately and sadly far too familiar with domestic violence, far more familiar with domestic violence than I would prefer to be. It's a terrible thing. It's what Greg Hardy is accused of doing is a terrible terrible actions, and I don't. Again, I don't know what Greg Hardy did or did not do when he was called upon to cooperate in this investigation. I suspect that when the appeal process is all said and done, we're going to be at 8 games, and I feel like 8 games is fair.
So you're saying that 10 games, you don't think that the 10-game suspension is fair?
No, I didn't say that. I said that ultimately I think we're going to come, after the appeal process is said and done, it'll be probably get knocked down to 8 games. And I think 6 games when you consider the violence of what was allegedly done, and then the failure to cooperate part. If you give 2 to 4 games for, listen, Bruce Pearl got tagged far, far, far worse by the NCAA for failure to cooperate. I don't have a problem with the league saying, listen, if you don't cooperate with our investigation, if you don't provide complete and accurate information, we're going to give you a 4-game suspension. I don't have a problem with that.
Isn't that so? And I know the NFL is different. I know the NCAA is different. But in a court of law, isn't there a plea that you can say to avoid from when you plead the fifth? I had it right on the tip of what I wanted to say. Self-incrimination. Like,
you can plead the fifth in criminal situations. You can in civil situations as well. But you got a problem when you do it in civil situations, because it's going to be an admission, and it's again, and we're talking about a civil type situation, because it is about money and not about incarceration. There's a higher standard when we talk about incarceration, and we could debate that. We don't have time. We're going to run out of time, and I know Vashti wants to talk about Golden Tate too.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
Yeah, it's all related, and because of social media, and you get hot takes from not only Vashti and Sharona, but sports figures as well. Golden Tate said in response to Greg Hardy and other situations regarding domestic abuse, he said that when you're accused, he said it's crazy that nowadays a female can just quote unquote say she was abused weeks later without any proof or evidence. The public figure can become the victim real quick. I have no toleration for abuse, however. Who's to say women are always telling the truth? And by the time the truth comes out, the public figure's reputation is tainted forever. I am not defending nor accusing anyone of anything. What do you think about? Of course, he deleted the tweets.
That's what I'm getting ready to say. He deleted those tweets. He can miss me. He can miss me with his bullshit. Say it with your chest, Golden Tate. Hey, are you noshing on any of your homies or your teammates, significant others these days?
Ooh, Shady Sharona has arrived and is open for business. Listen, my thing is, if you're going to have he went through and he obviously thought about his tweet and he put it out there. Like you said, say it with your chest. And I understand, this is always going to be a question when there's he said, she said, and if it is found out, listen, women lie, men lie, men will lie about being the abuser. Women, it doesn't happen as often, but there have been instances where women lie about being abused. It happens. Golden Tate should be smarter than to tweet something like this. I mean, the number. Go ahead.
If you look at the numbers, people always want to talk about the outliers, the ones, the situations, and listen. Frankly, everybody always thinks that the victim is lying. When a woman says that a man has abused her, whether it's sexually, whether it's physically, whether it's emotionally, our society automatically thinks that the woman lies. It's disgusting and it's wrong, and we need to do.
That, though?
Yes, it's disgusting and wrong, and we need to do better.
I don't think that society all usually doesn't believe the woman. I just think that society often questions the victim. People always want to know why, more the circumstances or whatever. But I don't think that society doesn't necessarily believe what's happening. I think that when I hear, depending on the circumstances, everybody has their own opinion about things. I may or may not believe based on the circumstances or facts. I might say, okay, yeah, I can see that person doing this, or, oh, you know, what really I want to know. I might want to know more details. But, you know, I think that Golden Tate raises a legitimate point, because there have been instances where it's been found out that the woman has not been telling the truth, and then it reverses, where the guy who has been penalized then in turn becomes the victim. And just like we talked about it on our show, the Florida quarterback who was accused of I don't know if it was domestic violence or sexual abuse, one or the other. They suspended him right away. And then it came out that the girl was not telling the truth.
No,
and
it didn't come out. It came. No, listen. Let me stop you there. She listen. And this is the problem. Women withdraw those complaints all the time for reasons that don't have anything to do with truth or not, that have everything to do with the reaction that they get to making those allegations. And that's why it's so very difficult to have this conversation when you don't understand and acknowledge that is the case. Now, definitely, let's talk about Brian Banks. We can talk about Brian Banks. Now, the chick who accused him, she was lying, and she's being punished, and rightfully so. When it's proven that the allegations are fabricated, bad things should happen to the people who make those. You know, I have every kind of sympathy for Brian Banks. What happened to him was horrible. But it's so hard to judge when women get scared or they get frightened when they're threatened, with death threats, or being raped because they made an allegation against someone's teammate. There are so many forces in our society that operate to keep women silent anyway. Not just on the bad things that happen to them, but on a lot of different things. And I think that we have to be very careful when we talk about victims who withdraw their complaints, because it's not always because they weren't telling the truth. There are a lot of... Listen, Janae Rice didn't even want to... You saw the video. She didn't even want to... She would have... If there had not been a video, I guarantee you she probably would have said that nothing happened.
Of course, I guarantee you
to protect her.
And I personally don't think that it was the first time that he hit her. I don't think that that's the first time he hit her. So, yeah, I mean, women do withdraw complaints because of outside factors, threats, like you said, being scared, not wanting to even go. It's an ordeal having to go through something like that. But sometimes women will drop the claim because it might not be true. Like, and I know that's often not the case, but that does happen, and I do. But we do go ahead, Sharona, introduce Melissa. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was just letting you know that that she's ready for her segment. We're going to talk a little bit more about Greg Hardy with Melissa Jacobs. She's on the line. We're going to go ahead and take a real quick break. When we come back, we're going to have the football girl Melissa Jacobs on, so stay tuned in. You're listening to Game Over with Vashti and Sharona. We'll be back in about 30 seconds. All right, good morning and welcome back. You're tuned in and listening to Game Over with Vashti and Sharona. I'm Sharona. I think my voice is finally, I've been trying to get it lubricated this morning. We're joined now by Melissa Jacobs, the football girl. So excited to have Melissa on this morning. Melissa is a sports fan like Vashti and I both are. First opportunity that we've had to talk to her, and so I'm very excited. Melissa, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, again, you're a sports fan. You operate the Football Girl. We're going to ask you how that came about. But before we get going, tell everybody who you are and just a little bit about the Football Girl.
Yeah, well, I started the site. I'm the managing editor and the founder of thefootballgirl.com, which is a site that is geared towards females. We cover everything in the NFL, player interviews, fantasy. We have features. I started it in 2009 to really mimic the NFL's efforts to market to women. It's just grown and grown. And I myself have, evolved as a writer, if you will, and I do some side freelance writing for The Guardian mainly these days. I've also written for ESPN.com and Forbes, and I try to keep it all to the NFL.
It's a great website. We just tweeted out a link to it. I definitely want to ask you a great interview with an up-and-coming, the new Sarah Thomas, the next Sarah Thomas. I want to ask you about that. But before we do, did you play sports growing up at all?
You know, it's funny. I played basketball kind of. I ran track in high school, but I was more of a you did. What events did you do?
I did. I ran the meters. I was much better. Yeah, I was much better. I was fast. I was pretty fast back in the day.
Okay, so short distance.
But we couldn't. First of all, in order to participate in sports at all, you had to. They made you run track, and to participate in the events, they made you run long distance. So I had to run long distance. I had to learn to run long distance. Oh my God. But anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. I mean, it's the same thing. I did hurdles and 200 meters and long jump and all that. But I was more of a thespian, so I kind of quit it all after I got a big role in high school. So it's kind of crazy because I just have always loved sports, and even back then I was very hardcore. But now that I do this professionally, especially when I worked at ESPNW, I worked with a bunch of women, and they all played lacrosse, and they were athletes, and all in college. So it was pretty intimidating to kind of say like, okay, I run on the treadmill now, and that's about all I do.
I know, right?
I can give you some fantasy advice.
Great. Yeah, ESPNW is great, and they do great work there.
Oh, yeah.
You talked a little bit about it. The Football Girl, again, a great website. What made you start that, and how did it come about?
Well, I had actually had a career at ESPN on the television. Well, actually the radio side first, and then I transformed into a television producer. I created a job on the TV side, just so I was citing a need at the time for sort of enhanced guests for all the shows, SportsCenter, NFL Live, and all that. So I pitched this job to a big executive at the time, and they created it, and I was the first talent producer at ESPN, and then now it's a whole department, which is, if you follow them on social media, you see athletes come in and out of there every day. It's pretty crazy. I did that, so I got a lot of exposure. I worked a lot on NFL Live, so I dealt a lot with the league and teams and individual athletes, and so at one point, I had to make a decision whether I was going to be a, ESPN lifer and stay in Bristol, Connecticut, or I was going to leave and, pursue things like family and live in a kind of more desirable place. And, Bristol has its perks, but it's not, I was in my 20s and wasn't, I wanted to live in the city. So I left.
Sorry about that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know where that's
sounds like a foghorn or something. Were you in San Francisco?
I feel like I'm at the Predators game last night.
And I feel like I'm giving a speech at the Academy Awards, and I'm supposed to wrap it up. But
no.
So I used the exposure. I left and I used the connections that I had, and I really wanted to do something entrepreneurial and something unique, and I really just kind of wanted to get into the web game. I knew that was kind of the place to be, and there was a lot of opportunity. So we launched the site in 2009. Actually, our first interview was Barry Sanders. We launched it with
Barry.
And at the time, it was really cool. At the time, he wasn't really kind of the media whore he is now. He was pretty much a recluse at the time. So I just met him at, Super Bowl events and talked about fantasy. So honestly, it took about a year to nail him down. But once I did, I was like, okay, we're launching the site. We have Barry. And it all kind of took off from there.
Yeah, it's so exciting to see women make it in this business, and your website is great, and you do really excellent work. I definitely want to talk to you about fantasy football, but before we get there, I have to ask you about your article on. I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Maya Chaka. Is it Maya Chaka?
Good job. Oh, yeah. That was before I interviewed her. That was the first thing. I'm like, okay, I need to make sure I'm saying your name right, because this will be mortifying if I'm not.
Yeah. So tell us how that came about. She sounds so great.
Yeah. I mean, it's a signature series we do on the site. We call it Featured Football Girl, and it's really cool. I mean, we basically interview prominent women that fall under the umbrella of the NFL in some form. It's been team executives, players' wives, prominent media people. We've done, across the board. So, in continuing the series, a lot of people kind of knew Sarah Thomas's story, and this was done before Sarah was announced as a permanent ref. I felt like a lot of people knew her story, but I knew, Maya Chaka was the other female official who was in the elite development program, basically, the minor leagues of officiating, on the cusp. So I just wanted to get to know her. So she's a Conference USA official. I reached out to them. She had to get approval from the league, which is kind of funny, because since she's not, a permanent official. But I understand they kind of want to control the branding of all this. And we had a lovely conversation. She was just really, really impressive. She talked about her background, and then, if people read the article, you can obviously see it in more detail, but how she kind of went. She's a PE teacher in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and she just, and she, just started at the lowest level doing JV football. I think she was setting up flags, and then it sort of evolved into learning more the rules, and then some of the, male officials, I guess, brought her into the fold on the college ranks, and it just grew from there. Jerry Austin, who is, was an NFL ref, and was actually ESPN's, version of Mike Pereira for a while. He popped in and out of the Monday Night Football booth a couple years ago. He's the head or the director of the Conference USA officials. So he and that's actually where Sarah Thomas reigns from too. So he took a liking to her, and he kind of helped her get promoted throughout the ranks. And now she's, I guess, next up when it comes to female officials becoming permanent.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say Conference USA looks like it's becoming like the building ground for up-and-coming NFL, because 3 of the new officials that are going to be, officiating games in the NFL this year are from including Sarah Thomas, are from Conference USA.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely not. I don't know if that's maybe Jerry Austin's influence, or it's just something about the conference. But yeah, you're definitely right.
So how did you get when did you become interested in fantasy football?
God, it was way, way before it was cool. I was in high school. Which was not, wasn't like 50 years ago, but it wasn't last week either. And nobody I knew really played, but my stepdad did. He was in a league, and I'm from San Francisco, so he was in a league. It was actually a father-son league. So they didn't explicitly exclude women, but it just wasn't a thing where anyone thought anyone's daughter would want to do it. but he didn't know a lick about the NFL, and I was already wildly into the NFL and into the rules and the schemes and everything, and I thought it was the greatest thing ever, and it was the most simple. It's just a touchdown league. That's it. So I was basically his ghost drafter. And I've actually retained that role for a lot of years. He still doesn't know anything, and I still pick for him, and he generally does pretty well.
That's so funny. That's
yeah,
great.
And then my first job out of college was working for the big radio station in San Francisco, KMBR, and then made it a league, and I've been playing ever since. And I commission leagues, and I'm now in multiple leagues, and it's like the greatest thing ever.
Hey, Melissa, this is Vashti. Which leagues do you enjoy the most, and do you play daily fantasy?
Okay, I don't play daily fantasy. I know that's all the rage, and I'm supposed to be, and I'm curious about it, but honestly, I don't know that I have the bandwidth. 'Cause like I said, I'm running the site. I do fantasy. I do regular. I freelance, right? So I just am and I have children and a life, and I just am really nervous about partaking in that. But, I can be convinced. I have run my own league now for since 2005. Oh my gosh, this will be our 10th year, and it's been really it's fun because it's just very competitive people. And I've had like a really good mix of ESPN people like Howie Schwab has played in it forever. Stefania Bell plays in our league now, so I kind of mix some of my media friends with my childhood friends, but who there's the base of they all have to have a certain level of competitiveness and knowledge. So it's a good co-ed mix, and it's just really a nice tradition. I play in another league. I think I've been doing it for 3 or 4 years, run by the Fantasy Football Nerd, which is a charity league of experts. I think there's 10 or 12 of us, and I just love it because you get whoever wins gets $500 to donate it to the charity of their choice. So I just think that's very cool.
It's so awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome. Plus, it's like, these bon vivants of fantasy. So you can really kind of measure, your performance against some of them. And, you can kind of even see some of the moves they make and whatnot and steal some tips along the way.
I don't play DFS either, Melissa. I keep wanting to, but I just know I'm going to suck so badly at first. And
you won't suck, Sharona.
I will. It's because it's they said there wouldn't be math in this. You have to use money, and I don't always play in money leagues when I play fantasy football. Sometimes I just like to have fun and play in fun leagues. Although I did win my money league last year, so humble brag.
Now, Melissa, you're from San Francisco. A lot of turmoil this offseason for the 49ers. Discuss that. What's the sense there, and will they be able to rebound this season?
You notice the turmoil? Yeah, I was just talking about this with someone the other day. I mean, I think the 49ers off-season, I think it was the schedule release night, and the 49ers off-season honestly probably rivals the breaking up of the Bulls of the 90s in terms of worst off-seasons ever. I mean, it's when you think about not just Harbaugh, you have this coach and Willis, and I mean just those two alone, and just to kind of I guess I was just thinking about my mentality at the schedule release last year and the enthusiasm for playing the Seahawks, and now this year seeing the release, I just wanted to cover my eyes basically and hope that the whole thing just rapidly goes by. But yeah, I think, and they open with the Vikings, so, maybe they can be 1-0. But I just feel like, I think, they could, there's still a lot of talent on the team, obviously, even defensively, even though, half the team retired or has been stripped away. But, yeah, I think there's enough talent to make, I think 8-8 is about as good as it's going to get. I think it's just going to be a year of recovering from Harbaugh and sort of discovering an identity. I don't think that's going to be inherent. I mean, there's aside from the coach leaving, there's just a lot of new parts on the roster, and especially defensively, this defense had been cohesive for 4 or 5 years now. You would see very little change, maybe one position here and there. So that's going to be a lot to deal with. Obviously, the coach is a whole other question mark. But I just think it's just going to kind of be surviving and figuring out the strengths of the team. I don't think we even know what they're going to be heading into the season, which is crazy.
Do you think Kaepernick is still the guy?
I mean, I think by default. The quarterback coach was promoted to offensive coordinator, so I think that cohesiveness will help. I think we'll see what the offseason with Kurt Warner, what that breeds on the field. I mean, I'm not convinced. We have to see the schemes too. I mean, they just everything went awry with Greg Roman the last couple of years after Kaepernick's breakout season, and the playbook just never really matched his strengths. I know there was one point where Alex Smith had more rushing yards than Colin Kaepernick. I think the year after Smith was traded to Kansas City, which never be the case. I think they just really need to suit it to his strengths, to his physicality. And I think the idea that Kaepernick is just going to morph into this great pocket passer and be able to read the field is a little bit, Pollyanna-ish. So if they can, alter the playbook to him, I think there's a chance. But I don't think Kaepernick himself is going to evolve into a different kind of quarterback all of a sudden.
Now, what about Vernon Davis? I had him on my fantasy team last year, and it was just disastrous.
Yeah.
Do you think if I were to draft him again, if I were to take that risk, would it pay off? Do you think that he'll rebound for fantasy football owners this season?
I don't see it. Honestly, I don't think it's worth the risk. I mean, the Niners offense itself has just been so inconsistent that you could just put up, and that obviously goes for Davis. I mean, you just might have a lot of zeros again. I just don't see the precedent that's been set it's been too long since that, double-digit touchdown year. So I just don't see that it's worth the risk. I'd rather invest in a different, unknown tight end maybe, and that has suffered through years of inconsistency. And we've seen some regression in Davis himself and his route running and his hands. So exactly. I think, at one point it was like he was the obvious solution. He was almost like the Jimmy Graham of the team, and you just were baffled at why he wasn't involved in more plays. But now I'm not.
Now, what about young players to watch this season? Maybe some guys you might be able to get on the sneak tip for fantasy football.
I think it's just really I'm excited about Amari Cooper. We'll know more in a week, right? I guess we'll know more in a week as to where things are going to shake out. But I think I'm really interested in just this upcoming class and really to kind of see where the running backs shake out, who's going to get drafted where, Melvin Gordon, and I sort of just have my eye on them. I don't have any. I'm interested. Obviously, I feel like Odell Beckham might have some. I think he's going to be overvalued because I think they're getting healthier and there's going to be more options on that offense. So that's what I'm excited to sort of maybe avoid, and I'm going to completely regret saying that in 6 months probably. But I'm more curious to see which of. Mike Evans, I think, can even get better. He's awesome and just was a great sort of, undervalued fantasy guy last year. So I'm excited about him. I'm less excited about Beckham just because of, I think, the coverage he's going to receive and the other options there in New York. So, but I really don't form my opinions until after the draft about where I think, especially young guys are going to shake out. Ask me again in a couple weeks.
I had Carlos Hyde in my dynasty league last year. I had a lot of 49ers players. Just the way the draft fell to me,
sorry.
I ended up. Yeah, I know, right? I had Colin Kaepernick, I had Michael Crabtree, I had Carlos Hyde. Crabtree obviously gone. It sounds like Hyde's going to be the guy.
I mean, I think they're going to do some kind of committee. I mean, people are saying Hyde, but it's not 100%. I think that's why I'm not right at this point wanting to just say where Hyde should go, because I just think that's all going to shake out as you get into training camp and whatnot. So and you know that the offensive line in San Francisco has taken a slight beating too, so that's something to consider with Hyde and other guys. It's not the solid line we've seen over the last 3-4 years either.
I thought that was an underrated aspect of what was happening with the 49ers last year.
Oh, absolutely.
The offensive line really was subpar, and it was surprising to me because they had been very, very, very good.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there were some injuries happening. Mike Upati, of course, there was the holdout. But there was definitely strangely had regressed, and it's not really easy to pinpoint why, but it certainly doesn't give any hope heading into this season.
Let's talk about some of the latest issues in the league. We spent the last 30 minutes before you came on talking about the Greg Hardy situation. He got a 10-game suspension for the events that occurred during last year's off season. Do you fair, not fair? What do you think about it?
Well, I was pleasantly surprised. I mean, I'm in the camp of I pretty much think he was guilty. He was convicted, and it was just strange North Carolina laws that he would have to have new evidence submitted into an appeal that kind of led to his, I guess, acquittal, if you will. I thought it was going to be 6 games, but I was pleasantly surprised at 10. I know that it's low risk for the NFL because he can possibly win his appeal, but they've sent their message. What I think is really important about their investigation, though, is the evidence that they discuss in the release they sent out, the pictures that they saw, the pictures they were able to get hold of. And I mean, I think for a lot of doubters in the public, that's always the base defense, right? There's no pictures in the NFL of Floyd Mayweather saying right now, which is absurd.
Yeah. Right.
So the fact that the NFL is saying, no, we saw bruises, we saw these pictures, that's what led us to this punishment, I think is really, really strong and important.
Well, like we saw with the Ray Rice incident, I hate to call it that, but anyway, the video made all the difference.
His wife in the elevator?
Yeah, right. You know, the video made all the difference. The photographs made all the difference.
Yeah.
Video and photographs are making difference, it's changing the game in situations where we as a society don't want to believe, and you see it in these situations where cops shoot unarmed citizens, largely black males. It's starting to change the game there. It really, and it's really going to be important, I think.
Yeah, but it's still sad that that it comes down to that this person is considered innocent. Is that what you're referencing?
Yeah, it is. It's sad. Well, I mean, it's sad, but it's also good too that we have it. That we have that available now.
No, it is. But then what about the cases where there isn't the evidence that TMZ grabs hold of? What about those cases?
Well,
where, maybe those women are. I mean, there's already so much psychological damage that comes with being a domestic violence victim. I mean, this is stuff we've all learned now since Ray Rice and all the deterrence from going public or reporting to the police. So if you see, this person gets punished because there's evidence and this person doesn't because they're not, like, Floyd Mayweather, for instance, getting glorified, then maybe he was a victim or who already is dealing with the own psychology of, self-blame or whatever perpetrators try to inflict on you, then you might be deterred from going public. So, I mean, I think there's, a catch-22 involved also.
You have a very interesting
article about it, but
No,
with that.
no, you're fine. You have a very interesting article on your website about Adrian Peterson. It says that Adrian Peterson still doesn't get it. I too, we talked about this Tuesday night. I don't know where he and his agent are coming from with all of this talk. Do you?
I mean, it's delusion, and it's his agent is clearly enabling him. He doesn't seem to have anyone in his life to ground him, and not only as just a man and as a human, but even from a PR perspective, the fact that again, we're talking about, this is evidence that was out there. I mean, whether you believe that your form of discipline is warranted based on your childhood, I mean, you yourself or someone has to advise you. You need to strongly apologize. You need to be in tears. You don't need to defend it in any way. And he's still to this day doesn't seem to believe that he's done anything wrong. He's playing the victim card, and it's honestly, it's disgusting.
I don't understand why he's mad at fans in Minnesota. I really don't. I don't get that part of it. Real quick, I want to ask you, I always have mixed emotions about this, but the Britt McHenry story is obviously big. I don't want to make it bigger than what it is, but I definitely wanted to get your opinion on it. Was the 1-week suspension warranted, and what do you think about it?
Well, I think it'll be really interesting moving forward. I will say, I put a tweet out there talking about how it reflected poorly on, all women in journalism. And I got a lot, I will say I got a lot of DMs, a lot of people who didn't want to talk about it publicly, a lot of DMs, including from some ESPN people, a lot of people saying, you hit that right on the head, or I'm missing the mark because what about, men and whatnot, or she's just an isolated incident. But I think there's a lot of barriers to women in every respect when it comes to sports media, and there's been so many gains. Obviously, look, we're here talking on a radio show, but I think, the blonde, dumb sideline reporter is definitely a stereotype, and it detracts from, the Michelle Tafoyas and Lisa Salters of the world who do kick-ass work and are real journalists.
They do.
And it also deters from, someone who might not be as pretty as Britt McHenry, but, pretty enough. Maybe they don't take the sideline reporter route, or I guess not sideline reporter, but just the reporter route in general where, that McHenry has. And I think, it reflects poorly. But I think with McHenry, what's going to be really interesting, I don't know if she should have been fired, but her role as a reporter where she needs to have relationships with players and PR people and coaches, and they've all seen this video. You guys may have seen Joe Staley. He said, LOL, you're a joke. He tweeted that out. He's on the 49ers, but, what if she sent to cover them? He's not going to reveal information. He might want to mess with her, if anything. So it might make her job really, really difficult. It's a crazy news cycle, and we'll be on to something else. And we maybe already are, but I think that's, again, we have evidence. We don't have hearsay, as McHenry said this. We have a video that you can watch over and over again. So I don't know how players, and that'll be what's interesting, if she can actually do her job. But maybe her job is just to stand there and be pretty and not, provide any useful information. So maybe she can just be fine.
I agree. Melissa, you're just so great. I'm like dying here. I have to ask you just real quick. We're getting ready to end the show, but I've been talking about hockey this morning. Do you enjoy any other sports?
Well, I've been getting into the NBA playoffs. The Warriors game last night was ridiculous. My husband's a big Bulls fan, so I'm getting the husband not sleeping because all these Chicago playoff games are going into OT. But I wish I wish I had more time. But I too, we have 2 young kids, and I'm working hard at on the site. But I'm enjoying the NBA playoffs for sure, and I'm kind of looking forward to the site. But I sort of have the next week. But I have the conundrum, obviously, of Ray Mayweather, which is a whole other topic that I'm writing about for the Guardian. So if anyone wants to see that, it should be published next week.
We're just getting ready to ask you about what projects that you're working on. So you've got something that's going to be coming up for the Guardian.
Yeah, I have a couple pieces next week for The Guardian. One, again, on the conundrum of, wanting to get back to boxing's glory days and remembering that I was a huge boxing fan growing up, but I honestly am very much aware of Mayweather's history and his denial of it, and it's very, very hard to support him in any fashion. So we're talking about the conundrum of that. And then I'm doing another piece for them, just sort of a humorous piece comparing Chicago and New York in advance of the draft, since the draft obviously moved to Chicago, and looking at bits and pieces of each city. Obviously, pizza comes to mind, but there'll be some more quirkier topics that I examine. I actually lived in Chicago for a year, and I live in New York now, so
okay.
I'm saying that I'm qualified to make that judgment.
Are you going to be in Chicago next week for the draft?
I am, actually. So.
Oh, cool. So will I. I hope we'll get a chance to meet.
Oh, cool. That'd be great.
That would be great. So anything else coming up besides this? I can't wait to read your 2 articles for The Guardian, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Well, the site, thefootballgirl.com, we're actually getting a little makeover, a much-needed makeover, so I'm excited to unveil that. And we're going to have a podcast this season finally, because it's 2015 and I should be doing that. So I'm very excited about that. And Pat Fitzmaurice, who's our awesome fantasy contributor, he's signed on to come back next season, formerly of Pro Football Weekly, and just a stellar writer and just awesome advice. So very happy to have him back. And that's pretty much it right now.
Well, tell everybody where they can find you out there in social media land.
Sure. Well, make sure to use otherwise you'll get soccer. But thefootballgirl.com is the site. The Football Girl on Twitter, the Football Girl on Facebook and Instagram, and I don't know if I'm supposed to have Snapchat, but we might have Snapchat and
it's the new
Pinterest
thing.
Too. I have Pinterest. I don't use it. Anyone has any ideas on how I can properly use it, but yeah.
I
the Football Girl everywhere.
Pinterest too.
I just signed up for
Pinterest too.
Okay.
There are a lot of funny things out there. I haven't quite figured out how to really work it into the sports thing, but I'm a new Pinterest user too. So, Melissa, thanks again for joining us. We really do appreciate it. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend.
All right, thanks. You too, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, that was Melissa Jacobs, the Football Girl. So excited to talk to her this morning, and great segment. Really appreciate her taking the time to come on. Great show today, Vashti.
Yeah, really good stuff. It was interesting to hear her perspective, especially as a former ESPNer about the Britt McHenry story. I'm still shocked that the story has legs. People are still talking about it.
Yeah, still talking about, and here's you don't want to make it more than what it is. Pretty girl is mean, story at 10, I keep saying that, but I think that it's important for, again, what we do is I think important, having women's voices out there, and I think it's important to hear perspective from, even if we don't always agree, it's important to get perspective from other women.
Definitely. I mean, that's what it's about. That's what our show is about, and so.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
All right, guys.
Well, go ahead, Sharona.
No, you go ahead.
Y'all,
I'm
still trying to get my head together, but we made it through.
We did. We made it through.
Shout out to Melissa again. Make sure you check out her website, The Football Girl. Make sure you check out my website, CarolinaBlitz.com. Sharona has an excellent show on Wednesdays, right? Sharona Unfiltered. So make sure you listen to her show. Follow our show on Twitter at Game Over Sports. And you can go to our website is still up, right? Game Over Sports Girls.
Yes.
You can catch all the former shows there. All right, guys, that's it for another week. Have a great weekend. We'll be back next Friday, same time, same place. You've been tuned in to Game Over with Vashti and Sharona.